Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto Was in God of High School and Had Moonlight Sword Part 1. Naruto information. Name, Naruto Naruto. Classification, human, borrowed power user holder of the body of the king, member of the Six. Alias, the king, saint, boss, child of prophecy, boys of miracle, the strongest swordsman to ever grace the earth, the strongest human. Classification, human, swordsman, power borrower, leader of Neo-Nox, member of the Six, Jinchuriki, sage, sensor type. Threat level, wolf tiger dragon nova, likely higher. Age, 12 16 18 post-time skip. Gender, male. Personality, at the beginning of Naruto childhood he was noted as boisterous, exuberant, and unorthodox. He inherited his mother's verbal tic as he ends his sentences with databeo (CFP) when emotional. He has picky eating habits of ramen, his favorite food. He has a perverted side that manifests as uses of the Hexi Jutsu. He seemed to like pranking people, even managing to outrun Chunin level shinobi and managing to conceal himself despite his orange jumpsuit. After his former teammate rival Sasuke Uchiha deserted the village for Orochimaru with a goal to one day avenge his fallen clan by eliminating his older brother Itachi, Naruto realized that he was extremely weak. Even after he went into the 3 years training trip with Jiraiya, he knew that with his current skills, saving Sasuke from darkness was impossible. After 2 months of basic training with Jiraiya, Naruto had grown fed up as he contemplated and questioned everything. Luckily for him, the strongest woman in the universe had decided to finally meet with her descendant as she offered him training in the sword art of the Yu clan and offered him motherly love, which was the one thing he had been denied his whole life. Traveling with Jiraiya, Naruto had discarded his last name for Naruto U as he had decided that the Uzumaki name had only brought him bad memories, and with his new last name, he will start anew. He had changed as he quickly became a warrior, as he could be innocent on the outside, but when in battle or pissed, he can turn into a ruthless fighter. Being taught to learn from his mistakes and improve made Naruto quick to admit to his mistakes. Unlike before where he trusted everyone, he was taught to never trust anyone or reveal any secrets, which made him quite distrusting and suspicious of any and all strangers, being highly defensive but polite all the same. He was regarded by Shikamaru as a decently high level of intelligence, testified with the fact that he is smart enough to rival Shikamaru but not lazy. Naruto is a fiercely protective and ambitious friend, constantly defending his friends from active or preemptive danger, although Naruto does sometimes prefer to be silent. After having a falling out with Jiraiya in their training trip, Naruto had decided to travel around the elemental nation on his own, away from Konoha protection, as he found himself in Kurigakure with the goal of gaining experience as he met Kiyomi Uchiha, who he had fallen in love with, and together they had ended the terror of the Yondaime Mizukage. Appearance. At 6'4" he was no longer a midget like he used to be, and his body showed scars on his arms, showing the amount of work he had done to achieve his strength. There were no longer baby fat, but instead he looked like a hardened warrior, and his whiskers that everyone recognized him with was gone, and his blonde hair was now replaced with white. His attire consisted of a white sleeveless shirt with a small black tie to go with it, grey pants with 2 overlapping straps that held his many swords, and white gloves over his hands. Shinobi clothes. His attire consisted of a white sleeveless shirt with a small black tie to go with it, grey pants with 2 overlapping straps that held his many swords, and white gloves over his hands. Father, Minato Namikaze. Mother, Kushina Uzumaki. Adoptive mother and ancestor, Yumira. Kiyomi Uchiha information. Name, Kiyomi Uchiha. Classification, human, ki, borrowed power user, member of the Six, shinobi, northern ITF Taekwondo practitioner. Alias, the queen, Kiyomi of the deadly Sharingan, the second ki, dragon lord, angel. Threat level, wolf tiger dragon nova. Age, 14 16 18 post-time skip. Gender, female. Personality, Kiyomi Uchiha is a very talented kunoichi, being hailed as a genius by her father Fugaku Uchiha. She is known to be naturally smart like Itachi and is well educated as a shinobi since she was a child. Despite her limitless potential that was waiting to be uncovered, the rest of the Uchiha clan had displayed great hatred towards the girl, as the Uchiha clan tradition dictates that the clan head should sire strong male heirs, so in the eyes of the clan she was an abomination. Her father had to make a hard decision to protect her by exiling her from the Uchiha clan and sending her away to Kurigakure, where she would live with some of his acquaintance that he and Mikoto had made over the years as a shinobi. Even after she learned about the Uchiha clan massacre at the hand of her kind older brother Itachi and her foster family death at the hand of Yagura regime, she was still known to have a brighter personality than her twin brother and is quite a cheerful individual. She even had a pleasant personality that Kakashi himself compared her to Obito Uchiha. She is also known as a very confident individual, according to her peers, which is why she is very determined with her own goals to save her 2 brothers from their suicidal goals, although she understands that if push comes to shove, she will be the one to put a stop to her siblings permanently. Kiyomi has also shown to have a childish side, shown by how she had taken to making out with Naruto in front of the council members after getting bored of old men and women squabble. She also has a sweet tooth. Kiyomi had displayed great admiration towards Naruto, having been rescued from potentially being gaped by multiple Kiri shinobi. That admiration had quickly turned into a love at first sight, as despite her confidence that she was known for, she had struggled for months to come out with her feelings and had resorted to admiring him from afar. After confessing her feelings in the most oddest way, her relationship with Naruto became official, and she had developed a territorial and competitive side that refused to lose to anyone, which she had taken to sleep with Naruto practically nude and even encouraged him to look and touch her, which is why she had always clashed head with Hinata Hyuga, who had not so secretly had a crush on Naruto from their younger days. Kiyomi loves her mother-in-law, having gotten along well with Mira after they first met, and it's where most of her straightforward attitude came from. Kiyomi's dream is to one day have a large family with Naruto and live a comfortable life as much as possible. Appearance: Kiyomi has long, black hair with some spiky ends at the back of the top part of it, much like most Uchihas are known in terms of hairstyle. Like her family, she possesses black eyes. Kiyomi is quite short, which puts her at around Sakura Haruno height, but with longer hair. Father: Fugaku Uchiha deceased. Mother: Makoto Uchiha deceased. Siblings: Itachi Uchiha alive. Sasuke Uchiha alive. Love interest: Naruto U. Chapter 1. A fated meeting. Naruto was rather furious with the current predicament that he found himself into. It was only 2 months that he had been taken on a training trip for 3 years with Jiraiya of the Sannin, with the goal of getting stronger to be ready for the Akatsuki, who had gone into hiding for another 3 years to make preparation to hunt down the Jinchuriki. At the beginning, Naruto felt confident that with the training of the strongest Sannin, he would be capable of one day fulfilling his promise to his crush and teammate Sakura Haruno of bringing back Sasuke Uchiha, his former teammate who went rogue in search of acquiring the power necessary to hunt down his older brother who had massacred the Uchiha clan, leaving only him as the survivor. Naruto had understood the Uchiha need to avenge his clan, but it was the Uchiha choice of sensei that had ticked him off, as it was none other than the snake Sannin Orochimaru. Under any circumstance, being trained by one of the legendary 3 Sannin would be an honor, but Orochimaru was a rogue shinobi of the Leaf who had fled the village after his atrocity of human experimentation was discovered by his former sensei and Sandaime Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi. But that wasn't enough reason for Naruto's determination in bringing the boy back. It was because Orochimaru had left his curse mark on Sasuke with the intention of one day taking over the boy as a vessel, as such his brother figure was pretty much selling his soul to the devil, and the more he is left under the tutelage of the snake Sannin, the more the Uchiha would slip away from his hold. Sadly, Jiraiya so far has been wasting his time, as the man had put emphasis on chakra control exercises and a healthy diet with the intention of one day teaching Naruto how to utilize the Kyuubi chakra and dispelling Jinjutsu. He understood that Jiraiya had all good intentions to train him into a fine shinobi who could one day combat the threat of the Akatsuki, but what was the point of being taught basic things that will definitely not help him combat S-rank Nuke Nin, who could level an entire mountain? How he envied Sasuke right now. For all Orochimaru's twisted personality, he probably had Sasuke put to the ringer, teaching him jutsus after jutsu and other shinobi skills that the boy could use, but for him, Jiraiya had spent the bare minimum teaching him, as he got distracted a lot whenever they passed a brothel, or if any attractive girl were to walk on the street, he would try to flirt with her, which always ended up with him being smacked around. It also didn't help that Jiraiya always took his research as his priority in order to write one of the biggest smut book in the elemental nation, and in order to get the material for the book he used the girls at the hot springs as an inspiration, with his methods being peeping, which often end up with the older man beaten on the ground. 2 months and Naruto was in the process of pulling his hair in frustration at the rate they're going through. He will never be able to achieve his dream of becoming a Hokage or ever hoping to reach for his brother figure Sasuke. And what about Sakura? How is she going to like him if he is weak, unable to fulfill his one promise? Naruto didn't know how long he had been outside, as he had decided to leave the hotel booked by Jiraiya in order to clear his mind, but one thing was for sure: he was getting tired and drowsy. Deciding to succumb to his desires of rest, he slept outside, something he have done multiple times, and nobody cared enough to tell him otherwise. It was only a minute that Naruto had woken up, realizing that change of scenery than the one he was previously in. He was obviously lying in a bed as he looked around the room with curiosity, as that wasn't even an hotel room, and some of furniture looked to be quite advanced, even for a shinobi village as big as Konoha. "Where am I?" asked Naruto as he cautiously stood up from the bed, looking around him, realizing that he wasn't tied to the bed or had shackles, so he doubted that he was kidnapped, but maybe the attacker didn't feel threatened by him, so he didn't restrain him. But one thing was for sure: nobody would give their prisoner such a comfortable room. Opening the door of the room, he found that it wasn't locked. Instead, he was welcomed by the long hallways, although the state of the hallways was not really the best as compared to the room he was in that was well furnished. Trusting his instinct, he walked towards the end of the hallway as he utilized the skill he had developed from a young age, and that is stealth. As he walked in the darkness, unluckily for him, he didn't have his invisibility sheets that he used on multiple occasions to avoid Chunin, and he wasn't really familiar with the place, so he couldn't use field advantage. So he resorted to tiptoeing and had to thank Jiraiya for bothering to teach him how to walk without making a sound. As he reached the hallways, he found himself peeking out around the large room, which showed a large perpendicular wooden table that reminded him of the meeting room in Konoha Council Chamber. But in the head of the table there was a throne made out of cement, and sitting on it was a white-haired woman with shoulder-length hair. She wore a sleeveless shirt that exposed her midriff with a small black tie to go with it, dark-colored short shorts, dark gray thighs and white gloves over her hands. Over her sleeveless shirt she wore an encompassing dark cloak which covered her right arm. But what intimidated Naruto was the multiple types of swords that were stabbed behind her throne, but oddly enough he felt a warm sensation inside his heart that he knew that person, but couldn't place his finger on it. "Are you going to keep hiding the whole time?" came the voice of the mysterious white-haired woman who opened her eyes to look at the wall where Naruto was hiding. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise, but decided that given that she hadn't even attacked him so far that she was a good person in his own book. So complying with the white-haired woman's demand, he came out of hiding as he looked at her emotionless look as her left hand was resting on the throne armrest. "Who are you?" asked Naruto. Usually he would have shouted and demanded the identity of the person, but for some reason every cell in his body told him that she was dangerous, something not even Orochimaru, Itachi or Kisame had managed to elicit from him. "My name is Mira. You could say I'm your ancestor," said Mira with a casual tone, but who could blame her with everything she went through? The idea of meeting an ancestor from a different era didn't seem far-fetched. Naruto blinked multiple times as he registered what was said. "Yeah, I call that bullshit," said Naruto, as his brashness came out at full force. Mira was quite amused to say the least as she watched her descendant inherit her stubbornness. "Show yourself, you stinking fox, I will not fall for your deception," shouted Naruto bravely as he pointed at the white-haired woman who seemed to burst out in laughter, irritating Naruto to no end. "The hell are you laughing at, Kyuubi?" shouted Naruto before the woman stopped laughing and took a serious expression as she snapped her fingers and the room changed, revealing the sower, and to Naruto's surprise and horror, the mighty Nine Tails was beaten black and blue. Snapping her finger once more, they were back in the throne room as Naruto was trying to understand what he had witnessed. "What the hell just happened?" asked Naruto, quite confused as the women adopted a smirk. "As you have guessed, this place that we are currently residing in is your mindscape, but unlike with that 10 feet fox that seems to be sealed in your stomach, I could alter this place to my desires, so I had it changed to suit my needs and because it was somewhat sentimental in some way," said Mira as Naruto nodded, understanding a little about the mindscape from Jiraiya's explanation as well in How to Meet the Nine Tails. "As for the 10 feet fox, my original goal was to come here in order to train you in the sword style that was originally taught in a dojo to other kids, but I doubt anybody would remember my clan sword style anyways. It was obvious when I first came here that the fox have a malicious intent in order to protect you. I had made sure to put him in his place, so I doubt he will ever bother you at this point," said Mira as Naruto gave the white-haired woman an admiration look as she made quick work of the strongest Biju that even the Yondaime himself couldn't defeat without sealing it inside his gut. It was then that what she said registered in his mind. "Sword style?" asked Naruto in a curious tone as he looked at Mira, who let out a sigh. "The sword style of the Yu clan is called Moonlight Wolguang sword style, which require a lot of precision and strength that could cause a lot of devastation, but since I'm the only one in the family that have taken the sword style to another level, I will teach you as well how to control the output of energy to not have everything crumble in your grip," said Mira with a smile as she remembered how she had tried to dig a well, but the pickaxe just broke in her grip after 2 swings. Naruto was taken aback that someone was willing to teach him. "Wait, you're really going to train me? Like no ditching me or you being a proud pervert like my 2 senseis," said Naruto with a cautious tone as Mira blinked a few times before she bursted once more in laughter as she was really enjoying this too much. "No, I am not a pervert as your 2 Jonin sensei, so don't worry, and I'm not going to ditch you like the 2 of them. I'm really genuine about teaching you, besides I have nothing better to do here," said Mira with a smile on her face as Naruto smiled. Maybe this could be his chance to finally be strong enough to get back his friend and maybe get Sakura to love him back. As if reading his thoughts, Mira let out a frown before she decided to speak her mind. "Listen, Naruto, training isn't going to be the only thing that I will teach you as other than the sword style. We're going to have to change your overall personality regarding your former teammate Sasuke Uchiha and your crush on Sakura Haruno," said Mira as she had taken to watching the boy's memory and didn't like what was happening in front of her eyes. Before the boy could shout in anger, she held her hand, making him stop. "Tell me something, Naruto. What will happen if that Sasuke guy didn't want to return to your village or have taken to killing others for his twisted pleasure? Would you still pursue him in order to fulfill a promise?" Asked Mira as she looked as the boy's eyes widened. Unlike with Jiraiya, she had brought a valid point. What would happen if Sasuke became evil and decided to kill others? Will he still selfishly continue pursuing his teammate for a promise? As for that crush over Sakura, and to be brutally honest with you, the girl is a really bad choice. She has taken to abusing you both mentally and physically, but other than that you don't really like her, said Mira, shocking Naruto by her last statement. Don't like her? What do you mean by that? Asked Naruto in a confused tone as he looked at Mira. Mira let out a sigh. I don't blame you for not understanding, because for years nobody was willing to teach you properly or give you the talk that most kids receive from a young age. You only feel admiration for that Sakura girl. She was bullied because of her large forehead and was not really that popular, but over the years she became one of the popular girls in the class, so you admired her in being able to achieve the one thing you couldn't achieve. Said Mira as she watched as Naruto went into a multitude of emotions before it became emotionless. You wanted attention, and the bad kind of attention, so you accepted the abuse that was delivered on you to get recognition from the villagers, although it only gave you the opposite. People only saw you as a nuisance and troublemaker, so they pushed their children away, not wanting them to get involved with you, but again, it's not your fault. You were not expected to understand everything. Said Mira as she watched Naruto's eyes tear up when faced with reality and a different perspective that he was ignorant to see. Pushing herself off the throne, she walked towards the vulnerable Naruto and brought him into a hug. People always says that men shouldn't cry, but I say screw that. Crying doesn't mean you're weak, it only means you're strong. That you have endured and survived, and most importantly that you are human, so let me be there to comfort you, said Mira with a smile on her face as Naruto gripped her shirt tightly before he started crying, releasing all his pent-up frustration that he had hidden under the happy-go-lucky facade. It was half an hour that his tears had dried, and Naruto had realized how good it felt to be embraced in such a way and given a shoulder to lean on. He felt like an idiot for calling Inari a crybaby, but there was no use in dwelling on the past. He now had the chance to change his life around, and for the better. But we're going to also have you study all over again. I can't have a descendant who has the mentality of a 5 years old. Said Mira, sweetly, making Naruto shiver, but unlike before, he didn't protest or make a scene. He knew that Mira will teach him everything he needed to learn and will not judge him or abuse him like most of the Chunin instructors in the academy. Teach me, sensei, said Naruto as Mira smiled widely as she was ready to pass down her teachings onto Naruto and make him into a fine young man who will one day surpass her. After all, he had the capabilities in him, but just needed a good push, maybe even a good kick to reach his potential. Mira gave an evil smirk that made Naruto shiver. Let's start our training right away, said Mira as she started chuckling darkly. That Naruto snapped his neck towards the crazy woman. What are you laughing at? Asked Naruto as Mira turned towards him with a glint in her eyes. Nothing to worry about, just thinking about all kinds of training that I will have you do. Said Mira. Oh shit, she has that glint in her eyes. I am so screwed, but worth it, thought Naruto as he started sweating slightly in fear. I wonder how he will react to the changes that will happen to his body, thought Mira before she shrugged her shoulders, not finding any problem at this point. Jiraiya was laughing as he flirted his way out of the brothel. Goodbye girls, said Jiraiya, who had a red tint in his cheeks, showing the amount of alcohol he had consumed that night. Goodbye Jiraiya-sama, make sure to come visit us once more, shouted the girls at the brothel as the man smiled. Of course ladies, said Jiraiya excitedly before he walked away to the hotel he booked. I wonder what the brat has been doing. Asked Jiraiya to himself as he walked towards the room opening it. He was surprised to see the room empty and the light shut, which was either two things: Naruto is out there eating ramen, but at the time of the night it would be impossible for any shops to be open except for the shady club that are around the area, so the only option is that Naruto is trying to prank him in some way, but being a master spy nothing could get around him and he didn't sense Naruto. The last option is that Naruto had trained himself to chakra exhaustion, and it wouldn't surprise him as the boy have done that multiple times, even sleeping outside in the open at the beginning. He would have just ignored it and let him do his thing, but at this point of time where Akatsuki is still out there, he wouldn't be surprised if they tried to kidnap him and imprison him until they could seal the tailed beast one by one. Despite his drunken state, he decided to push himself to find Naruto. He was not in the best shape, so his senses were dulled due to the effect of the alcohol being in his system. I really wish I could purge the alcohol from my system like Tsunade, thought Jiraiya. Luckily for him, Naruto was where he left him, sleeping on the ground. Jiraiya had froze in his place as he had to take a double take at what he was seeing right in front of his eyes, as Naruto's appearance have changed drastically as he has grown quite taller, that he would no longer be called a shrimp, but most importantly his whiskers were gone and his hair had turned white. What in Minato's name happened here? Asked Jiraiya, finally sobering enough as the first thing that came to his mind was the nine tails as he rushed towards the former blonde, pulling the boy orange jacket along with his white shirt, revealing the boy navel, applying chakra, revealed the 8 tetragram seal. Checking the seal, there was nothing wrong with it, everything was going smoothly, so he frowned. This was not the Nine Tails doing, he should know, since he had studied his deceased student's seal, and it was a piece of art. The 8 tetragram seal would not allow even more than 4 tails to be released unless he decided to loosen the seal himself to allow the boy to access more tails if he proved to be capable of handling the strain and holding his human side without submitting to the animalistic side. Jiraiya was frustrated because he didn't have an answer to that phenomenon that just occurred to Naruto. His mind then shifted to Tsunade, the god-aim Hokage of the Leaf Village. What was he going to tell her? But one thing was for sure, he needed answers before he could do anything as send a missive to Tsunade and incur her wrath for being an incompetent sensei. Picking the boy from the ground, he decided to take him back to the hotel. He then looked at the orange jumpsuit as it started to rip due to the boy's unnatural growth. We will probably need to get him new clothes. Hopefully he could part with the orange jumpsuit, God knows how much he liked the color orange. Thought Jiraiya as he let out a sigh before retiring for the night with lots of unanswered questions. Chapter 2. Decisions. Jiraiya could be seen sitting in an hotel room. Oddly enough, he wasn't out there peeping at the girls in the hot springs or spending a night at the brothel getting a one-night stand like he always did. This time the man was sitting on a chair and a table in front of him as he dipped his ink pen in the ink box before he started writing on the white paper. It has been a long year ever since he took Naruto on the training trip in order to prepare him for the eventual confrontation with the threat known as the Akatsuki, which is an organization consistent of S-ranks Nuke-Nin, with the sole purpose of capturing the Jinchuriki. For whatever goal it still remained unclear, but it was obvious that Biju were some sort of national treasure to each hidden village, so it would be impossible for the said village to even part away with it. Jiraiya really wanted to teach a lot of things to Naruto, but they only had 3 years to train and get ready for the Akatsuki, so all plans were thrown aside as he had to prioritize in fixing Naruto basics, which includes having the boy reach an acceptable chakra control level, because at this point having no chakra control would prevent Naruto from learning anything else. Dispelling Jinjutsu was another thing that he wanted Naruto to learn to break as he took into consideration Itachi Uchiha Sharingan Jinjutsu, although he doubted the boy will be able to break all of his Jinjutsu, but standing a chance was a much better choice, as such chakra control was needed because you can't release little or too much chakra in a way. Dispelling Jinjutsu is like tree walking exercise. Summoning jutsu was the very next thing he had prioritized. Maybe it was because he wanted to leave a successor behind to the Toad clan, but it was obvious that summoning contracts are quite rare to find in the elemental nation, and some of the summoning clan are loyal to certain clans, like the Monkey clan being loyal to the Sarutobi clan. So you could expect that having the strongest summoning clan of Konoha would be an extremely helpful tool, especially when combating the Akatsuki threat. So he wanted Naruto to be capable of summoning battle toads in his battles and be able to create synchronization with his familiar toad, which was Gamakichi. Combat was the very next thing he wanted Naruto to get used to, as he wanted Naruto to transition from those brawler-style Taijutsu to the Toad clan Taijutsu katas, which will be helpful to him when he learns the Sage mode of the Toad clan. Battle tactics was also part of the combat part, as he wanted Naruto to build to some level patience, to not rush into battle blindly, and use every element to his advantage. That includes the Shadow Clone Jutsu. The last thing he wanted to try was having Naruto get comfortable with the Nine-Tail Chakra, because while the Akatsuki are an organization that specializes with capturing Biju, but nobody could deny that if anyone managed to get control over the Nine-Tails Chakra, then they will become a literal powerhouse, that even the Akatsuki will be hesitant to attack, which will only give them time to even explore the Sage mode, which will only give him a boost of power, and then the prophecy will come true with Naruto saving the world and ending the senseless bloodshed by creating true peace. That's what he truly hoped, but things weren't the same ever since he found Naruto that day looking completely different than before. He had at first believed that the Nine Tails had somehow bypassed the seal, but that would have been impossible as he would have sensed it, and when he checked the seal, it was obvious to him that the changes weren't the Nine Tails doing. What he didn't take into account is Naruto's change of attitude that came with his appearance. It was obviously slow, but he noticed how Naruto became quiet and reserved, only talking when he is addressed to in the first place or saying a few words. It was quite concerning for him, especially how Naruto was considered to be quite an eager person to know others, but the current Naruto is quite distrusting and suspicious of any and all strangers, being highly defensive but polite all the same. He had also started demonstrating high-level intelligence that was previously impossible for him to have, and while he supported such a positive changes, he was quite frustrated because he wanted to know what could have resulted in the changes. He tried asking Naruto himself, but to his surprise Naruto was quite tight-lipped about everything, as he constantly gave him vague answers that only left more questions than answers. At this point he was tempted to drag him back to the village, because Naruto was pretty much withholding information that could be quite dangerous in their travels. But he had submitted himself to the prophecy of the Toad clan. As much as he hated the mysterious air that surrounded Naruto, he had to take into consideration that Naruto might be the child of prophecy, and he needed to train him so he can bring peace to the world, a dream he, Minato and Sarutobi had shared. Still he needed information, and since Naruto wouldn't talk he decided to try another method, which is the old sparring session which sounds innocent on the outside, but his intention is to analyze Naruto the very last details. You will be surprised at how much you can know about a person with the way they fight, and Jiraiya has succeeded, although he knew that Naruto was aware of his intention behind this so-called sparring session. When he started analyzing Naruto in their sparring session, there were many things that have changed well, more like everything had changed about him, as his taijutsu style unlike that brawler style that he used previously gave him an idea that Naruto is a swordsman, as the way his foot was planted on the ground and the way his hands moved further confirmed it. He had to admit the taijutsu style was a very good one, as it was based on the concept of treating your body as a living weapon, while also disarming a person off their weapons, and use everything around you that includes kunai as well, which he could remember when Naruto flung a kunai towards him like some sort of projectile, and it resulted in the kunai to pierce 2 trees, which if he didn't know any better he would think that Naruto used wind jutsu like how Asuma uses his wind jutsu with his trench knives. Then the last problem is training. Jiraiya liked to believe that he was a good teacher. He had taught the yondaime who quickly rose up to become the strongest shinobi of his time, and he was still not in his prime, he was very much young. Jiraiya had trained Minato, Yahiko, Konan, Nagato and Naruto the same way he was taught by his own sensei Hiruzen. Many people had questioned his teaching methods as he was known to throw the material in the lap of his student before going to indulge in 3 shinobi vices, but despite popular beliefs he never overestimate anyone's ability, and when he placed the material in his student lap, he is confident that this is within their capabilities, and he was proven right on multiple times. Even Naruto, who had the mentality of an 8 years old, was able to perform an A-rank jutsu, the Rasengan, in a matter of 1 week, which showed and proved to Jiraiya that Naruto was a prodigy, although he was still a coal that needed to be heated to reveal the diamond that is hiding inside. Jiraiya always knew that Naruto has deep fascination for jutsus, having been under his Jonin sensei Kakashi Hatake, who was known for having copied 1000 jutsus. It was bound to happen that Naruto would take interest in the department, and with his massive reserve of chakra, that idea didn't seem to be impossible. If anything, he believed Naruto would excel in the ninjutsu aspect, but they were running out of time. Besides, ninjutsu required deep understanding in the mechanism of the jutsu, which Naruto didn't have the patience for. So it was a massive surprise when Naruto just simply did as he was told without making an unnecessary fuss about learning jutsu. Well, that would have made him sigh in relief at not having his ear blown by Naruto screaming of protest. He suspected that he didn't protest because he wanted him out of his hair so he could train in other things that weren't in the training plan. That brings him to the conclusion that someone is training Naruto, his own godson is being trained by another person. Just thinking about the idea in itself was a big taboo. He was supposed to train the child of prophecy, in which mind you was prophesied by Gamamaru, the great toad sage of Mount Mamboku. He really wanted to find that person and give him or her a piece of his mind about sticking his or her nose into other people's business. Despite his anger, he had decided to catch Naruto's interest the same way he did a year ago when he first met him, and that is the typical way to teach him something cool that will make him more eager for more, and taking into consideration Naruto's interest in swordsmanship, which was seen from the way he looks at swords and the way he fights, made what he was going to do even more better. He had contacted both elder toads Fukasaku and Shima about the situation, and they decided that in order to renew his interest in Jiraiya and fulfill the prophecy, they will teach him the sword style of the Toad clan, which followed the same basic concept of the taijutsu kata of the Toad clan. Sadly for them, they failed miserably, as Naruto pretty much considered it a taboo to learn anything other than his mother sword style. Flashback, the 2 elder toads were resting on both Jiraiya's shoulders, both sporting smiles on their faces. They have all come to an agreement that teaching Naruto the sword style of the Toad clan would ensure the boy wouldn't run to anyone else for training, as the prophecy needed to be fulfilled. Are we sure this is going to work? Asked Shima aka Maa. She was obviously the most concerned out of the 2 idiots, as she knew that this won't be a pleasant confrontation. I'm sure it will work, it's Naruto after all. No matter how much change he went through, he will obviously be interested in learning something cool to impress everyone, including his crush over the pink-haired girl in Konoha. I believe her name was Sakura, said Jiraiya, as he giggled perversely, much to the ire of Ma. Putting aside Jiraiya's perverseness, the prophecy made by Gamamaru-sama needed to be fulfilled or this world won't survive to see another day. Said Pa with a small frown on his face, yet held a smile on his face in hope. Naruto could be seen walking towards the mountain area where Jiraiya had called him for their training session. He had obviously changed a lot since he started, as he wore a white shirt with his mother black cloak encompassing his left arm. He was wearing a black cargo pants. His white hair swayed around as the cool breeze of the mountain range hit him softly in the face, but he didn't show any signs of being bothered as he held the emotionless look that he had learned from his mother's emotion control lesson. He found Jiraiya with two toads sitting on both his shoulders. They were obviously a little taken aback by his appearance, but he didn't find any reason to care. "Hello Jiraiya-sen, I see that you've brought two guests with you. My name is Naruto U. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance," said Naruto in a polite tone, impressing the two elders' toads, but found themselves frowning with the way he introduced himself. It was obvious that he had discarded his Uzumaki name. "Likewise Naru-chan, my name is Shima, just call me Mama," introduced herself quite happily that Naruto wasn't a glorified pervert like his sensei. "My name Fukasaku, but just call me Pa, and we're both the elders to the Toad clan," introduced Pa, quite impressed. "Very well, but why don't we get to the topic? I already know that two elder toads wouldn't just come all the way here just to get to know a rookie summoner of the Toad clan," said Naruto as Pa and Ma sweat slightly, realizing that he is already aware that they have an intention behind this meeting. "I asked them to come here personally since I realized that you have an interest in swordsmanship. Sadly, I'm not really a fan of swords, so I decided to ask them if they could train you in the sword style of the Toad clan," said Jiraiya with a jovial tone as he smirked, thinking that Naruto will be more eager. "No," was the response that came from Naruto, which had taken them all off guard, not expecting anyone to refuse such a gracious offer. Obviously both Pa and Ma were in control of their emotions, but Jiraiya didn't have such control. "Why that? Do you realize how rare it is to get training from two elder toads? You should be honored that they are willing to teach you," asked Jiraiya, quite pissed to say the least. "Jiraiya-chan, it's his choice to make, we didn't come here to pressure him," said Pa, slightly disappointed but quite understanding. Naruto didn't seem bothered by Jiraiya's reaction. "I have no issues with the two elders and their offer, but I'm not going to learn any other kenjutsu style that isn't taught to me by Mom. I am the 26th master of the Moonlight Wolguang sword style of the U clan, and I'm proud of it," said Naruto with pride in his voice. "Mom? Could it be Kushina? But that's impossible, she is dead. Besides, what the hell is the U clan?" thought Jiraiya with panic, realizing that Naruto was indeed taught by someone else. "So you went to someone else for training, am I not good enough for you?" asked Jiraiya with a hint of anger and sadness. Naruto looked at the man with a slight frown. "I will be brutally honest with you Jiraiya, you're a good sensei, but as you said before when we started this trip, we don't have time to play around. Sadly, you don't have self-control, which is why you spend half of the day either spying on the innocent women in the hot springs or blowing Lady Tsunade monthly stipend on brothels instead of properly using it to further my training," said Naruto as Jiraiya flinched and Ma glared at the older man. "Since our time is quite limited to say the least, you wanted to teach me the basic that is taught in the academy and how to use the Nine Tails chakra. I don't simply have the time to waste over something that will only cripple me, and when I say cripple I'm speaking about relying on the power of the Nine Tails to survive, which is the last thing I want," said Naruto, which Ma and Pa agreed. "Who is this Mom and how did you meet her?" asked Jiraiya, wanting information on this person. "The only thing you need to know is that my mom was the one who taught me everything, and she did a better job at it than you could ever hope to accomplish in 3 years, and most importantly she cared about me and understood me," said Naruto as Jiraiya lowered his head. But you were always smiling and cheerful, undeterred by anything," said Jiraiya as Naruto gave him a disappointed look. "It's easy for people to assume that just because I smile from ear to ear, that no matter what kind of problem I face, I will just bounce right from it, but none of you really understood how I really felt, you just acted on baseless assumption," said Naruto as Jiraiya flinched. "At this point Jiraiya, I don't really trust you with anything because you haven't properly earned it," said Naruto as he turned around and simply left. End of flashback. At this point, Jiraiya knew that Naruto doesn't trust him with anything even though he was his godfather. For a few months he didn't know what to do anymore, but one thing is clear is that Tsunade finally needs to be made aware of what was happening. He was going to send a missive telling her about everything that had happened so far. He knows that she will obviously be furious at him since he hid that information for an entire year, and when she realizes what he has been doing on the trip, he will be reintroduced to her fist. He knows that there is a high chance that this training trip will be cancelled altogether and that both of them called back to Konoha. He can't keep holding back Naruto. He had tried to gain his trust, but he realized how difficult it is to regain Naruto trust. Once you broke it. At this point they were merely strangers as he still continued training Naruto, but it was obvious that with his newfound intelligence, he had been able to absorb everything quickly. He should have felt some sort of pride that he had another genius as a student, but that honor wasn't his. Folding the paper, he sealed it inside a scroll before sending it through his toad summon. He could only wait for Tsunade to answer his letter. Behind the walls was Naruto, who shook his head. "So that's your decision Jiraiya, sorry, but I'm not going to return to the village without completing my training," thought Naruto as he waited for Jiraiya to finally sleep before he left his own letter and departed from the small town far away from the safety of Jiraiya and Konoha. Chapter 3. Kiyomi Uchiha. Crash. The entire Hokage mansion shook by Tsunade's super strength as her fist collided with Jiraiya's chest, sending him crashing onto the multiple walls as he laid between the rubble of the destroyed walls. Tsunade was furious beyond anything as she glared at her former teammate. How could you, Jiraiya? I asked you to train Naruto properly, but instead you tell me that you have been spending the monthly stipend that I have instructed to be used in his growth in whorehouses, and then you hid from me for an entire year about the changes that happened to him. The job he ran away, Jiraiya shouted Tsunade. Lady Tsunade, please calm down. This was an unexpected situation for both of us and for Jiraiya-sama himself. I doubted he wanted to worry you, said Shizune as she successfully calmed down Tsunade, who took a seat on her chair, obviously ignoring her table that was broken in half by a karate chop. Jiraiya stood up from the rubble, showing himself to be in a much better state than anyone would expect from a guy who got punched through walls. This was unexpected even for me, Tsunade, but I guess he ran away when he realized that I was sending a missive to you, so he probably thought that you would cancel the 3 years training trip. Explained Jiraiya as Tsunade let out a sigh. The problem is the council itself. Konoha is still sore from when Sasuke Uchiha betrayed the village for Orochimaru, and now with Naruto doing the same, even if he is planning to return after the 3 years, would make them quite angry, and I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to add him in the bingo book as a rogue shinobi. Tsunade showed great worry, and Jiraiya understood the ramification of such action. It's not as simple as you might think, Tsunade. If Naruto completed the 3 years training trip, I doubt anyone in this entire elemental nation could pose a threat to him, which means if those old fools of the council, especially Danzo, had tried to attack, this could very well mean our demise, said Jiraiya as Tsunade eye widened, including Shizune. One thing they knew about Jiraiya, and that is he never over-exaggerate someone's ability. Are you really serious, Jiraiya? Do you really think that he is so skilled that he would pose a threat, asked Tsunade. I'm not saying that Naruto is evil here or that he would destroy us, but we need to take into account that Naruto is not the same idiot. Everyone knows he has changed, and he won't hesitate to kill if felt threatened or just simply annoyed. Said Jiraiya as Tsunade let out a sigh. She rubbed her forehead. We need Naruto back in the village. He can't just roam around the elemental nation, especially with those Akatsuki running around. Our only best bet is to have Konoha 11 be sent to retrieve him, said Tsunade as Jiraiya lightened up. That does sound like a good idea. I doubt Naruto would hurt his friend, said Jiraiya, finding himself agreeing to the idea. But until then we need to track him, and quickly before anyone else could get the bright idea to try and take him away. Said Tsunade as Jiraiya nodded, leaving the room in order to start searching for Naruto. Naruto was walking in muddy terrain as he observed the thick mist, but his enhanced senses made it impossible for anyone to even take him off guard. His appearance hasn't changed much aside from Bongxian being strapped to his waist. Naruto knew that eventually a search party will be sent with the purpose of finding him, and he wasn't intending on making it easy, as such going to the water country was the best choice, especially around the Hidden Mist Village, which was notorious for being called the Bloody Mist Village due to the graduation exam, requiring you to kill everyone in your graduation classroom. Naruto knew that with Yagura still in power, he would be more surrounded with the most twisted bastards in the Mist Village, and this was an opportunity to get fighting experience. His musing was cut short when he heard the sound of weapon clashing. Should I go check it out, thought Naruto before he decided to succumb to his curiosity as he headed towards the location of the battle. Perching on the tree, he observed 10 hidden mist jounin surrounding a girl who was his age. She was obviously tired, but what caught his interest was the 3 Tomo Sharingan that was spinning wildly. Surrender, Kiyomi Uchiha, you have nowhere to run, said one of the female jounin of Kurigakure as she glared at the 14-years-old girl. Like I will surrender to you bastards, you will just kill me like all bloodline users, said Kiyomi, her voice dripping venom and her eyes showed defiance. The male jounin gave a maniacal chuckle. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Kiyomi-chan. After all, it is much more fun when the prey beg for mercy, said the jounin with a sadistic glee before he then started to eye her. For a 14-years-old brat, you have such a curvaceous body, it's a shame we will have to kill you. If left a little you could have grown even more beautiful, but you will have to do for now. Continued the jounin as he licked his lips. Kiyomi Uchiha closed her eyes before she opened it once more, revealing her Sharingan eyes that were straining from her consumption of chakra. She was an Uchiha, as such she was going to fight to the bitter end as she willed herself to grab her kunai. The jounins of Kurigakure rushed towards the weakened Kiyomi with the intention to kill her, but that never happened because Naruto decided that he had enough watching as he jumped in front of Kiyomi, shocking her and the other jounins, never expecting a kid to appear. Naruto capitalized on that to draw Bongxian, which immediately caught everyone's attention due to its unique appearance before he brought his sword in a downward diagonal direction. Subtle slide, said Naruto as he watched as the group of jounin were cut from the waist, killing them immediately. Kiyomi was amazed as she fell to the ground looking at her savior, who then turned towards the 5 other jounin. Leave or die, said Naruto with a cold tone as the 5 jounin shivered in fear before they decided that it wasn't worth throwing their lives away. "Okay man, we're leaving, she's not worth risking our life for," shouted one of the jonin who was the first to run away from the scene, followed by the others. Ongxian vanished from Naruto's hand before finding itself back to his waist, as Naruto looked at Kiyomi, who looked at him with a small red tint in her cheeks, but also in amazement. "Are you okay there?" asked Naruto as he kneeled in front of the girl and brought his hand so she could grab onto, which she complied as she grabbed onto his hands. "Why yes, I'm fine thanks to you," said Kiyomi, although she found herself slightly stuttering as her cheeks reddened. "Well, I'm glad to hear, my name is Naruto Yu. I already know from observing that your name is Kiyomi Uchiha," said Naruto as Kiyomi nodded shyly. Are you by chance related to Sasuke Uchiha?" asked Naruto in a curious tone as Kiyomi's eyes widened before she grabbed him, shaking him. "Wait, you know my big brother? Where is he?" asked a hopeful Kiyomi as she frantically asked Naruto. Naruto grabbed her hand, stopping her from shaking him even more. "Sasuke Uchiha was my former teammate. He had deserted the village for Orochimaru of the Sannin in order to get revenge on Itachi Uchiha for the clan massacre," said Naruto as he watched multiple emotion go through her face before she bursted into tears. Naruto was surprised, not really expecting the girl to cry like that, as he comforted her by bringing her into a hug, which she hugged back. Why do they have to fight like that?" asked Kiyomi through tears. "I don't really know, as his teammate I was sent to retrieve him, but I was tired at the time because of the Sound 4 trying to delay us. I ended up confronting him, but at the end he won and almost killed me with an air rank assassination jutsu," said Naruto, as Kiyomi cried even more, realizing that Sasuke was willing to even sever his ties with his teammates. Naruto then grabbed her bridal style, much to her surprise, embarrassment and secretly to her enjoyment. "We should get away from here. It's not safe. I will answer your questions regarding your two brothers," said Naruto as Kiyomi nodded, although she realized that with her adrenaline running out, she had started to get exhausted and her eyelids started to get heavy before she laid her head on his chest, succumbing to unconsciousness. Naruto had managed to find a cave in which he decided to place the unconscious Uchiha princess on a sleeping bag that he brought with him. Using the shadow clone, he had them gather the necessary items to start a bonfire as he sat in a rock watching over the sleeping form of Kiyomi Uchiha. "She's different from the rest of her clan," thought Naruto as he remembered how she reacted even after knowing that Itachi killed the entire clan. She only cared about her two siblings, not fighting to the death. He then glanced towards the sleeping girl. She was obviously quite stunning. She has long, black hair with some spiky ends at the back of the top part of it, much like most Uchihas are known in terms of hairstyle. Like her family, she possesses black eyes. If he had to guess, Kiyomi was quite short, maybe at the height of his teammate Sakura Haruno, but with longer hair. She was wearing a grey shirt with the Uchiha clan logo. She also had a dark grey colored jacket. She wears blue sandals which match well with her outfit. Her left arm and right elbow were wrapped around bandages. Her lower legs to her knees showed bandages as well. She had a ninja pouch on her right thigh. He then decided to look away and at the bonfire, realizing that he had been staring at her for quite a while. She was a stranger at this point, even though she was related to his former teammate Sasuke, but maybe seeing her fight like that despite her injuries and being outnumbered made him respect her, and much to his embarrassment, he found it quite hot. "Ah great, I guess that is one thing I inherited from mom, and that is being into strong women," thought Naruto as he remembered how his mother fell in love with Dewi, and that is because Dewi was a certified badass. He could already hear Mira laughter inside his mindscape, probably finding the entire situation funny and cute. Naruto then decided to finally get to sleep as he leaned his back on the rough walls of the cave and closed his eyes, getting into a light sleep. It was the next day and Kiyomi found her eyes open to be met with the sunrays before she tried to remember what happened the previous day, before she remembered being cornered and then saved as she looked around her, noticing the bonfire that was still illuminating the cave, releasing a warm aura which kept her warm the entire night before she looked at the corner of the cave to see Naruto sleeping. She looked down, realizing that she had been sleeping inside her savior's sleeping bag and felt quite guilty about it. She then unzipped the sleeping bag as she stood up, finding herself in her shinobi garment untouched as she stretched her muscles, but couldn't help but give subtle glances at the sleeping Naruto, who had a peaceful look on his face as she couldn't help but remember how he jumped in and saved her like those stories of the princess and the knight, especially the way he held her made her feel special, but she decided to banish those thoughts. "Don't move too much, you're still injured," came the voice of Naruto, who opened his eyes from his light sleep, making her scream slightly as she looked at the boy incredulously. "You were awake this whole time?" asked Kiyomi, a little hesitant, but Naruto just shook his head. "I'm a light sleeper, and considering that we're in the water country which is close to the mist village, this makes it more dangerous to sleep in the first place, but I doubt anyone will find this cave, so you should rest," said Naruto as Kiyomi nodded her head as she walked towards the sleeping bag and got in. "I'm sorry if I took your sleeping bag, it must have been hard to sleep on the hard floor," said Kiyomi with an apologetic look. Naruto just simply chuckled. Don't worry about the minor details, but I have a hard time believing that Sasuke had such a beautiful sister who is much kinder and not emo-like," said Naruto with an amused tone as he watched Kiyomi's face redden the compliment. "Can you tell me about my brother Sasuke, and if you know something about Itachi please tell me," pleaded Kiyomi as she gripped the sleeping bag in frustration. Sasuke was a very good person to be around back before the Uchiha massacre. He more than anyone in the village took pride in his cool older brother Itachi, and as such he wanted to one day surpass him to make him and his parents proud," said Naruto as Kiyomi simply listened. After the Uchiha massacre, his mind was warped as his perception of his older brother was shattered and only saw the person who robbed him from his family and clan honor, so he isolated himself, keeping mostly to himself and disregarding everyone including the group of fangirls that he garnered in the academy, said Naruto as Kiyomi flinched slightly. "At the academy I was known as Naruto Uzumaki, but the last name hold no value to me anymore because the last name remind me of what everyone saw me, and that is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki who robbed them from their loved ones," said Naruto with a bitter tone as he looked at the shocked Kiyomi before her expression softened. "It must have been quite hard being the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. I don't really want to pity you, but I'm sorry that you had to experience something like that early on in your childhood," said Kiyomi as Naruto smiled slightly. "Thank you, now to continue, your brother and I were put on the same team, along with his number one fangirl Sakura Haruno, which ironically I had a crush on, but I no longer like her, only feeling pity for her as our Jonin sensei was Kakashi Hatake," said Naruto as Kiyomi nodded her head, a little familiar with the Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi was a very late person as he always came 3 hours late, but nobody could deny that he had helped Sasuke improve mentally, as he always believed that those who break the rules are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. After a few months together, as a team, Sasuke had started to forget about his revenge, but both his meeting with Orochimaru and Itachi had pretty much bucked up everything, said Naruto as he watched Kiyomi's expression turn to worry. Orochimaru had gave Sasuke his curse mark, and Itachi used Tsukiyomi to have Sasuke be put in a comatose to watch the clan massacre multiple times. It was then that he remembered his revenge goal, and the Sound 4 came at the time to escort him out of the village and to Orochimaru, said Naruto as Kiyomi nodded her head slowly with sadness in her eyes. "I don't really know much about Itachi aside from the fact that he joined a group of S ranks called the Akatsuki, whose sole purpose is to gather the tailed beasts, for what purpose we don't know, but I had a confrontation with him and his partner Kisame Hashigaki of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. He was obviously a calm person and the more reasonable out of the two of them, which is why I have a hard time understanding what is going through his head," said Naruto as Kiyomi looked down in the ground in shame, not wanting to look at Naruto in the eyes. Naruto had suffered at the hand of her two older brothers. "Then why did you save me?" "My two elder brothers hurt you, so why?" asked Kiyomi, tears freely escaping her eyes. "I'm not one to hold grudges. I knew the moment I placed a leaf headband that I will have to deal with situation like this. Besides, why would I blame you for the sins of your brothers? After all, I had people in the village treat me as the Kyuubi incarnate, so if I hurt you simply because of your lineage, then I would be no better than those civilians," said Naruto with a small smile as he walked towards the girl and brought her to his eye level by pulling her chin up. Kiyomi blushed slightly as she twiddled with her fingers. "So what are you going to do now?" asked Kiyomi, a little nervous. "We are going to travel together. I originally came here to get some experience by fighting some Kiri shinobi who are part of Yagura forces, although judging from the 10 that chased you, they were already pathetic," said Naruto, making Kiyomi sweat drop slightly but confused. "Why do you want me to travel with you?" asked Kiyomi, a little hesitant as Naruto gave her a deadpan look. "You're pretty much a target for Yagura. The next time he will probably send more than 10 jonin, maybe even the hunter ninja will be involved as well. Having at least one person to have your back would be a much better idea," said Naruto as Kiyomi nodded her head, finding logic in his words, but quite happy that she got to be around her savior. "So where are we going to go, Naruto-kun?" asked Kiyomi as Naruto raised an eyebrow at the suffix but didn't pay mind to it. "After you're fully recovered, we're going to go through some drills merely to get an idea of your full capabilities. After all, Kurigakure is a dangerous place to live in if you're not strong enough, and if you have a bloodline your life is even more difficult," said Naruto as he could see Kiyomi deflate. Obviously being called weak indirectly was getting to her self-esteem. "But still, nobody could deny that you have potential to be something even more deadlier. I'm not saying this to get you down. It's best to know your limits rather than try to force yourself into impossible situation that will only get you killed, and Kurigakure is a place where you can't let your guard down unless you want yourself to get killed," said Naruto as he could see Kiyomi brighten up at the compliment and smiled himself. "What are you going to do after that, Naruto-kun?" asked Kiyomi as she looked at Naruto curiously. Naruto looked at her. Based on your capabilities, I will be able to determine what suits you best and what needs to be focused on, because one thing every bloodline user falls into is their over-reliance on their bloodline, and that is a big mistake that need to be quickly fixed, said Naruto as Kiyomi blushed in embarrassment as she was extremely reliant on her Sharingan. My test will consist of taijutsu, ninjutsu, jinjutsu, yukijutsu, dojutsu. These are the things that I will test you on. I will be honest with you, there are things I'm not really knowledgeable at, but doesn't mean that I can't tell you a few jutsu that I know how its mechanism work, which include a lot of fire jutsu, water jutsu that I've seen both Sasuke, Kakashi and other shinobi I've seen in my travel use, said Naruto as Kiyomi nodded her head excitedly. I'm ready Naruto-kun, said Kiyomi with determination as Naruto nodded with a small smile. Let's test your resolve then, Kiyomi-chan, said Naruto as Kiyomi shivered, knowing that this won't be anything pretty. Chapter 4. Stealing first kiss. Kiyomi Uchiha had realized that Naruto was a sadist. When she accepted training she was expecting something normal, but he was a slave driver, requesting ridiculous training regimen that she doubted if any normal person could survive it. But she begrudgingly followed the training regimen merely because Naruto himself had gone through the training regimen and she had to admit the training had been useful and learned that everything Naruto did was for a reason, no matter how much it sounded useless or ridiculous. The physical portion of their training was merely to work on her endurance and durability, as he had her work until she can no longer move her body, no matter how much it hurt. The next day she was able to outlast her previous record. When it came to taijutsu, Naruto proved to be the strongest out of the two of them as he beat her up to the ground. Kiyomi couldn't say that she hated it, if anything she was grateful that Naruto didn't give her the kid gloves and showed her the openings in her taijutsu style, and the bruises served as a reminder of her weakness which made her push herself to improve. Ninjutsu was a little harder since Naruto wasn't a ninjutsu specialist, but he did remember multiple hand signs for fire jutsu, water jutsu, earth jutsu and lighting jutsu. The only problem is that she needed to understand how its mechanism worked in order to use it, because chakra needed to be kneaded in some way. In order to use the jutsu, like in the case of the fireball jutsu, she have to knead her chakra to her lungs and expel the fire from her mouth. Although it was obvious to Naruto that fire jutsu was something she excelled at the most, that's why he taught her every fire jutsu he could remember. At this point he knew that she would reach a level that surpasses even the normal fire jutsu. When it comes to Yukijutsu, Kiyomi excelled in the Shuriken Jutsu, which was obvious, considering that she has the Uchiha blood running through her veins. She also had taken interest in using an umbrella as a weapon, and Naruto encouraged it, as it was the perfect weapon for her. As on the outside, it looked like a normal umbrella, but in reality it was a deadly weapon when she used it. When it came to Jinjutsu she obviously excelled in it, even compared to both her elder siblings, which speak volumes of her abilities, and Naruto made sure to remind her every day that she had potential which did wonders for her self-esteem. Naruto knew that she had a lot of untapped potential to surpass her two siblings, especially in the Jinjutsu and the fire jutsu aspect, but with his physical conditioning that he gave her, she was going to be dangerous in battle with or without the Sharingan, as he had her train her eyes to the point that her eyes was a 2-tomo Sharingan in itself without the slow motion aspect. All she needed was experience, and Naruto had taken her multiple times to ambush some of Yagura forces, and she had proven herself to be a capable kunoichi, and Naruto knew it was a matter of time before they both were placed in the bingo book. It has been 1 year and 9 months since Naruto had left in the 3 years training trip, and 9 months since he left Jiraiya protection and Konoha as a whole to continue his training. Tsunade has been agitated ever since then, as she had been sending search parties to locate Naruto. The only thing they found was that Naruto might have been sighted around Kurigakure. It was obvious that no matter how much she tried to hide Naruto deserting the protection of Jiraiya and to extension Konoha as well. Sadly, Danzo already knew of everything and made sure to bring it up in the council meeting. Luckily for her, the Konoha clan had already taken a liking to Naruto, as such they were on her side, but Koharu and Hamura have been requesting that Naruto would be captured and have his movement restricted inside the village. Sadly for the old fools, Naruto had a lot of influence outside, and if word got out that Konoha is restricting him, would put Konoha in a bad position in front of its allies that was gained by Naruto, which includes the Godin Kazuki Ujigara, who shared a close bond with Naruto. When that was brought up by Shikaku Nara, the elders had realized that they were cornered and had relented in their decision, although Danzo was quite disappointed. If anything, he wanted Naruto in his rude organization. Now they have come to a breakthrough, as in front of Tsunade was the updated bingo book of Kurigakure open to reveal a picture of Naruto. His picture was taking almost the entire page. How could this have happened? Asked Sakura in disbelief as she looked at the bingo book with bug eyes, although she couldn't hide her blush that was dusting on her cheeks as she looked at her teammate's picture. What are we going to do, Lady Tsunade? Naruto is an S-rank criminal in Kurigakure for his actions, said Shizune with a concerned tone for Naruto's well-being. This is a difficult situation that we're in, and I doubt that it will be easy to send a retrieval team without causing an international problem with the Yonde Mizukage, and if word got out that he is one of our shinobi, it will cause even more problem for Konoha, even though I don't really care about the consequences," said Tsunade as she rubbed her forehead as she wanted to send a retrieval team, but her position as a Hokage demanded her to not interfere for the moment. "You can be serious, Master Tsunade, can't we just do something?" Sakura pleading with Tsunade, who frowned at the pink-haired girl. "We can't do anything, Sakura, for now, at least because of his action. The rebel army that is led by Meitarumi are advancing much more quicker than they anticipated. At the pace they're going at, the Yonde Mizukage will be overthrown and a new Mizukage will be put in place. It is then that we could do something," said Tsunade as she looked at her pink-haired disciple. "Do you think he could have joined the rebel army?" Sakura was concerned that her teammate might have deserted the village for another. Tsunade shakes her head. "No, surprisingly he had declined the offer of joining the rebel army, but he did offer his assistance. You could say that it's some sort of temporary alliance," said Tsunade. Shizune smiled. "I think we've got ourselves a new alliance," Lady Tsunade said Shizune as Tsunade frowned slightly but smiled. "You're right, that might be what we need to ensure that when we get Naruto back in the village, the elders won't get any ideas to have him locked inside the village," said Tsunade. But Sakura tried to argue, seeing that Naruto would be in danger if left alone, but a harsh glare from Tsunade made her stop. "Shut up, Sakura. Naruto is not the same goofball that you remember from your academy days. He is an S-rank criminal in Kurigakure who had single-handedly took down a lot of their shinobi who are all Jonin level, and his swordsmanship was said to have surpassed even the famed 7 swordsmen of the mist," said Tsunade as Sakura nodded her head meekly. "I know you're worried for your teammate, but what is the point of acting rashly? We need to be patient, and the civil war is tipping in the rebel army favor at this point. By the second year they will already have defeated Yagura, and a new Mizukage will take the Yondaime place, and he would remove Naruto from the bingo book, which will help us easily grab him from there legally," said Tsunade. "I understand, Master Tsunade," said Sakura, although she wasn't really happy with being unable to do anything, but she had to agree this situation was beyond their capabilities. "Excuse me, Master Tsunade, I will head to the hospital to further my studies," said Sakura as she bowed down to her master before walking away frustrated at her weakness. Naomi Uchiha liked to say that she was strong. After all, she had overcome the one thing every Uchiha had fallen into, and that is the curse of hatred. She had a terrible childhood, as despite being the daughter of the clan head Fugaku Uchiha, who mind you was a good father, even with all his stoicism and ignoring her Aunt Sasuke for Itachi. Sadly, the Uchiha clan were extremely prideful people, which borders even arrogance, as her birth had caused a lot of problems among the clan, as an old law stated that the Uchiha clan head should have strong male offsprings, but she was a female, so in the clan eyes she was an abomination. Her life was constantly in danger. Maybe that was why she was never allowed to even leave the house. Fugaku had tried to convince the clan otherwise, as despite her young age, she had a lot of potential that could even surpass Itachi himself. But the Uchiha clan elders were extremely traditional, and the idea of a female heir to surpass the male heir was blasphemy to them. At the end, her father knew that he couldn't do anything, and if he pressed on the matter any further, his clan head status would be revoked, and another traditional clan head would be put in place, and won't hesitate to have her killed. So with a heavy heart, her father and mother had come to a decision, and that is to send her away from the village and to an acquaintance in Kurigakure who will raise her and offer her a somewhat normal life. She could remember vividly her mother crying and her father trying to put on a brave face, but couldn't hold back the single tear and the look of self-loathing. She could remember her elder brother Itachi, who hugged her tightly, unable to part ways with her, but had to let her go for the sake of her future. Sasuke, on the other hand, was unaware of everything. He wasn't told anything because he was too young to understand at the time the heavy decision that adults had to take. Her life in Kurigakure was difficult at first, as she had to get used to her new family members, but that didn't last long when the Yondaime Mizukage had started the bloodline purge and her adoptive family were killed, and she had to live and survive on her own. Despite her immense courage to have survived all of this without going mentally insane, she was still unable to get the courage to confess her feelings for Naruto, the one person who saved her from being gaped and killed by multiple Kurigakure Jonin, the one person who stood by her side and trained her to become who she is today, and the one person who supported her and her dreams of one day stopping her 2 elder brothers from their suicidal ambitions. She could only watch as Naruto slept inside his own sleeping bag. His face was much calmer, his breathing regular. It always made her heart pound every time as she watched his peaceful sleep. Every night she would sit in front of him admiring him before she slept as well inside her own sleeping bag that formerly belonged to him. This time she couldn't help the movements of her hands as she cupped his cheeks gently, and her lips twitched every time as she leaned slowly, her lips inches away from his before she stopped hesitating, but one look at his face and her lips connected with his. At first it was a simple peck on the lips, but she found herself desiring more and more as each kiss became longer than the previous ones. Her eyes closed, savoring the taste of his lips, being unaware that Naruto was already awake. Kiyomi leaned her forehead with Naruto as she took a few deep breaths. Naruto-kun, I love you. I'm sorry for not being able to tell you properly face to face, but one day I could finally express my feelings properly, said Kiyomi, her eyes closed as she poured out her feelings. Naruto smiled slightly as he brought his arm around her waist. Before she could react, he pulled her to a kiss, surprising her as her eyes flew open to see that Naruto was awake the whole time. Separating from the kiss, her face turned atomic red. Then Naruto-kun, you were awake this whole time? Asked Kiyomi in shock as she looked at her crush, who gave a smirk. Yeah, I was awake this whole time, said Naruto with a smirk as he looked at Kiyomi, who started twiddling with her fingers nervously. So you heard my confessions as well, said Kiyomi nervously as she was unable to look her crush in the eyes. Yes, I also love you, Kiyomi-chan. I'm sure my kiss was enough to prove that, said Naruto with a small blush as Kiyomi looked at Naruto in the eyes and couldn't help the tears of joy as she jumped towards him, engulfing him in a hug as she smashed her lips with his arms and found itself wrapped around his neck. Naruto on the other hand wrapped his arms around her waist as he let the girl take the initiative with the kiss. Separating from the kiss, Kiyomi was quite overjoyed as even though she confessed her feelings without knowing that Naruto was awake, she considered this a success in her book regardless. Grabbing the zipper of the sleeping bag, she pulled it down as she got inside the sleeping bag with her hands wrapped around Naruto's waist. Naruto pulled the zipper up to his chest while wrapping his own arm around her waist. It was quite tight between them, especially her breast that was pressed tightly on his chest, making the two of them blush. Naruto gently brought his hands to gently caress her hair while she rubbed her head onto his hand, enjoying the affection that she was being shown. So Naruto-kun, does that make us be boyfriend and girlfriend? Asked Kiyomi with a small blush as she looked Naruto in the eyes. Sure, I don't see why not, said Naruto with a smile on his face, something only she had such a privilege to see on his face as she leaned her face upward, catching his lips with hers. Good night, love, said Kiyomi happily as she let her body relax on her boyfriend's arms while Naruto smiled. Good night, hun, said Naruto as he waited as her eyelids closed in exhaustion, as he waited patiently as her breathing became stable and then closed his own eyes as well to finally relax. Although he was obviously pulled into his mindscape to meet his mother, who he might add was a sucker for romance, which was a shocker to those who didn't know her on a personal level. She obviously congratulated him as any normal mother did to her children who found his special girl, and then she went on a tirade about how to treat a lady and how to make them feel special, while also adding a few of her own stories about her love life with Dewey. He was grateful for his mother no matter how weird she can get, but he loved her the way she is as he can act around her normally while showing his childish side from time to time that he didn't show to anyone. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.